In the raw, RK's Guyana Free Media, me, Haji Dr. Roshan Khan, out of the jurisdiction. And today, this morning, on the 7th of January 2022, I shed tears for two African personalities. This is the first one. And this has to do, as you can see from the clippings I made by watching the news, of the murder of a beautiful black youth, AHMAUD ARBERY, by more than one white Americans, maybe the assassins of the Klan. But I don't want to show any kind of a racial prejudice, for there are many white people who defend African people and will stand for right as for the judge and the prosecutors and the law of the land of the United States. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue. But in America, we have great freedoms, but we have great assassins of people who are of color.
I promise to you, today I laid you to rest. I told you I love you, and someday, somehow, I will get you justice. Son, I love you as much today as I did today that you were born. Raising you was the honor of my life, and I'm very proud of you. Your Honor, these men have chose to lie and attack my son and his surviving family. They each have no remorse and do not deserve any leniency. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or mistaken fact. They chose to target my son because they didn't want him in their community. They chose to treat him differently than other people who frequently visited their community. And when they couldn't sufficiently scare him or intimidate him, they killed him. My youngest son, he was born on Mother's Day of 1994. He had a smile so bright it lit up a room. He was a greedy baby that seemed like he was always searching for something to stick into his mouth. He was always a loving baby who seemed to never tire of hugs, cuddling, and kisses. He loved, and he never hesitated to tell me, his sister Jasmine, and his brother Marcus that he loved us. And Your Honor, we loved him back. He was messy. He sometimes refused to wear socks or take good care of his clothing. I wish he would have cut and cleaned his toenails before he went out for that jog that day. I guess he would have if he knew he would be murdered.
We love our son, and we will never have him with us to celebrate anything. Thanksgiving, Christmas, or his birthday. His kids should spend the rest of their lives thinking about what they did.
My family is gonna miss AHMAUD. We're going to miss his jokes, his impersonations, his warm smile.
The judge in the AHMAUD Arbery case. Today he sentenced the three men in the killing of Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia. All of them facing life in prison, but the judge had to decide whether any of them deserved the chance at parole decades from now. The judge in court carefully choosing his words, sharing his own thoughts, what led to his decision. At one point, reminding the courtroom that Ahmaud Arbery ran from that truck for 5 minutes as they chased him. The judge telling the court he would stop talking himself for a full minute. There was silence. He then said that was just a fraction of the time that Arbery was chased. Travis McMichael, who fired the shot and killed Arbery, his father, Gregory McMichael, and their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan. Both Travis McMichael and his father were sentenced to life in prison without parole. And William Roddy Bryan, the neighbor who was with them, who shot this video, was the only one who the judge said showed any concern in the moments after that deadly shooting. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. The court hearing from Ahmaud Arbery's family, his sister, his father, and his mother, who said the men showed no leniency when they murdered her son, so they do not deserve leniency either. ABC's Steve Osunsami leading us off tonight from Georgia with what the judge.
All right, the way the court's going to address this, I'm going to make a few remarks and then address each one of the defendants with regard to sentencing. And the remarks are intended to be general, but also taken into consideration in the individual sentencing portion of the court's statement. So that's how we intend to proceed. So the court has heard the evidence in the case, has accepted the jury's verdict, listened to the presentations here today in aggravation and mitigation, and candidly have spent a lot of time thinking about this. This is a case that has taken a lot of time and energy on a lot of people's parts, and has been a case of note, not just in this community, but really in a lot of communities. What we're here today to determine is what an appropriate sentence is, quite separate from the notoriety of the case and any other outside influence that may exist. And so the court is going to be very careful in explaining that the court has considered just the evidence and what is appropriate under the circumstances of this case to consider in the Superior Court. So that all being said, let me start with this statement. As we all now know, based upon the verdict that was rendered in this court in November, Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy on many, many levels. On February 23rd of 2020, almost 2 years ago, a resident of Glenn County, a graduate of Brunswick High, a son, a brother, a young man with dreams, was gunned down in this community. As we understand it, he left his home apparently to go for a run, and he ended up running for his life. He entered the English home at approximately 1:04 p.m. and left that home at about 1:08 on that day. At 1:14, Greg McMichael calls 911 to let them know that there's a black male running down the street. And within moments, Ahmaud Arbery is shot and killed. The three men that are now before this court chased him in a residential neighborhood for at least 5 minutes in pickup trucks, armed with a shotgun and a .357 revolver. The state mentioned this today about the time period, but I do want to put that time period in context, and the only way I could think to do so may be a little theatrical, but I think it's appropriate. I want us all to get a concept of time, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit silently for 1 minute. And that 1 minute represents a fraction of the time that Ahmaud Arbery was running in Satilla Shores. That's approximately a minute. Again, the chase that occurred in Satilla Shores occurred over about a 5-minute period. And when I thought about this, I thought from a lot of different angles, and I kept coming back to the terror that must have been in the mind of the young man running through Satilla Shores. The jury heard the evidence and returned a verdict. And what a difficult job they had under the circumstances. Without any comment on the verdict itself, I think all counsel will agree and accept that this was a very difficult case to even get a jury impaneled on. And there are issues out there with regard to the jury that were brought up in the press and elsewhere.
This is a terrible and a painful thing, my beloved divine friends and family. AHMAUD. I don't know if they know the name AHMAUD, what it signifies. It doesn't say that they are Muslims, but maybe he was in his heart. His parents gave him that name. They must have known the power of AHMAUD. AHMAUD is the original name of our beloved prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. Muhammad, Ahmad. And the Bible also spoke of Ahmad. They changed the name in the Bible, but it refers to the coming of the future prophet, the unnamed prophet, the prophet Muhammad, which they misunderstood at one time. Are you speaking of that prophet? They were asked. So he has this beautiful name of Prophet Muhammad, and his family name is ARBERY. He was killed because he was black, just because he was black, running in an upgraded neighborhood where his family lived, and they didn't like the idea that a black man and family were living there, so they targeted this boy. And all he was saying, he wanted to be left alone to run, the thing he loved the most.